2023. As we gather today, I respectfully acknowledge on behalf of the territory of the Algonquin people. It is with this statement that we honor and respect the Algonquins on whose land we were. Public meeting. The application underneath the City of Pembroke zoning bylaw 2020-05 to rezone the property municipally known as 201 Pembroke Street West from Central Commercial C3 zone to a Central Commercial 14-C3 14 zone. Clerk, would you please report on how notice was given?
Notice was given by mail to all owners of the property within a 120-meter radius of the subject land and was posted on site on June 29th, 2023.
Thank you. I'd ask for a planning report from Mr. Hutton, who is our planner for this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship. The applicant, Michael Conroy, has submitted a site plan proposing the conversion of a rear portion of the existing building at 201 Pembroke Street West, currently vacant commercial space, to a bachelor dwelling unit. The property is currently zoned Central Commercial C3 by the zoning bylaw. The C3 zoning includes the permitted use of dwelling units above and below ground floor non-residential uses, meaning that under the standard C3 zoning, the proposed ground floor residential use is prohibited. Therefore, site-specific Central Commercial-14 or C3-14 zoning is proposed and recommended to permit the use of 23% of the gross floor area at the rear of the existing building as an apartment dwelling unit. The proposed bachelor dwelling unit would be 45 square meters, which exceeds the minimum dwelling unit area requirement of 37.16 square meters for a dwelling unit in a non-residential building in a central commercial zone. The remaining commercial portion at the front of the building, currently the C3 permitted use of a bakery, at 146 square meters would comprise the majority use, or 77% of the gross floor area of the building, and it would continue to use the full Pembroke Street West facing facade. No addition to or modification of the existing building footprint is proposed. The property is largely surrounded by other properties zoned C3, as you can see in the attached mapping. A vast majority of these properties are of a mixed-use nature, with apartment dwelling units above ground floor commercial uses. As such, the proposed zoning is highly compatible and in keeping with the surrounding zoning. Further, a similar site-specific C3 zoning was approved in 2015 for 108 Pembroke Street West, which was C3-33, allowing for up to 50% of the rear portion of the existing building to be converted to residential uses. The property is designated Central Commercial under the city's official plan 2016. The proposed zoning is strongly in keeping with the official plan because the proposed residential use is compact infilling. It is located in an area with ample amenities to encourage pedestrianization, and the majority of the building, along with the full frontage on Pembroke Street West, would remain storefront for the buying and selling of goods. In terms of the provincial policy statement, this application promotes both intensification and redevelopment by providing an additional dwelling unit in the downtown core of the city and simultaneously increasing the mixture of housing density options. Again, this application is consistent with the PPS. Therefore, the Planning Department is recommending the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment for 201 Pembroke Street West from a Central Commercial C3 zone to a Central Commercial-14 C3 14 zone.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. Was anyone in opposition of this application?
We received a single informational inquiry regarding this application, Your Worship. No submissions of support, of opposition were received. The applicant, Michael Conroy, is present this evening via Zoom to support his application.
So, Mr. Conroy, did you wish to speak to your application?
Not unless I can clarify anything. I feel that everything that's necessary is in the application itself.
Thank you. I'd now ask for a report from the Chair of the Planning and Development Committee of Council regarding the Planning Advisory Adjustment Committee comments for this particular application.
Your Worship, I would defer to Councillor Keel. I was not at that meeting. Councillor Keel, would you take that on, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jacquinot. We did discuss it very briefly Obviously, as Mr. Hutton said, there is past precedent for the downtown to add a portion of a residential to the first ground floor. This unit is it's actually a little larger than the city's minimum requirement. Personally, I think it's in a great location to provide potential student housing or whatnot in the downtown core. The committee had no concerns about it and approved it unanimously, and I will support it tonight and ask my fellow councillors to support it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. Is there any questions from members of council? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn this first half of the public meeting. I have the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Giacono. Those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Conroy, for attending.
Thank you.
The second one we have this evening is a meeting being called to consider proposed amendments to the official plan 2016 and zoning bylaw 2020-05 under sections 17 and 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990. Clerk, can you please report on how notice was given?
Notice was given in the June 22nd, 2023 edition of the Pembroke Observer and News.
Thank you. I would ask for the report from Mr. Hutton as our planner on this item.
Thank you again, Your Worship. At the Planning and Development Committee meeting of June 6th, 2023, the committee directed staff to proceed with the following official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments that are required based on changes to the Planning Act. Number one, the definition of a complete application in our official plan would now include site plan agreements and the recommendation for pre-consultation meetings prior to the planning application submission. Two, the possibility of delegation authority for the removal of holding symbols and authorization of temporary use of land, buildings, and structures. Number three, to amend the definition of affordable housing to be consistent with the provincial definition as found in the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022. And finally, the fourth amendment to the official plan to amend the section referring to second units to now include 3 units as permitted by the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, and a single amendment to the zoning bylaw to amend the definition of secondary dwelling unit to include 3 units. I believe this information was already received at the Planning and Development Committee. Would you like the report repeated?
Looking to members of council, I think we've all received it in our packages, and we've all had an opportunity to review it. If I can, it's not an actual application, but nonetheless, it was publicly advertised. Was there any opposition or comment in any way?
We received no feedback on this application.
Thank you, and I'm wondering if I could call upon Councillor Keel to provide comment from the Planning Advisory and Adjustment Committee.
Yeah, very, very short. Obviously, these are changes that have been forced down on us by the province and nothing else. So it's more housekeeping other than anything. And I think both council and the planning committee previously got updated by Ms. Sorial on these new requirements. So it's our hand is sort of forced on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Keel. Is there any questions from members of council? Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm still dealing with the quandary of the Building the Homes Faster document that the province has supported, and again, the quotation mark, affordable housing. I still do not know what that means. Affordable housing in the region of Peel and Halton and Toronto are a little bit different than what they would be here. And how do they establish that based on what? Overall general average, based on assessment or on sales? I would like to know how they come to an affordable housing terminology. I still have some concerns trying to understand that. Perhaps it's just me, but I don't know if other members of council feel the same.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Mr. Hutton?
Through you, Your Worship. So the definition in the official plan would be amended to match the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, which the specific definition is one, a residential unit intended for use as a rented residential premises is considered affordable if the rent is no greater than 80% of the average market rent, or number 2, that the residential unit not intended for use as a rented premises shall be considered affordable if the price of the unit is no greater than 80% of the average purchase price. The province has yet to release the specific regulations as to where that data will come from, but that is that definition is what the official plan would adopt to match the province's direction. We would be awaiting further regulations from the province as to the specifics of those statistics.
Councillor Gill?
Councillor Giacono and I are in lockstep, I think, on this one, because one of the issues that I think we have is that although we're matching the provincial definition, which I think is useful in the context that we're not on a different page that the province is on, if anyone was listening closely to the definition, it's a percentage of market rent and it's a percentage of housing prices, which has obviously nothing to do with the wage that you're being paid or taking home or the money that you have available to you. So in some ways, is it affordable? Well, we all know around here, just in the span of a few months, and Councillor Giacono would have seen this with the other councillors. I mean, the housing costs in Pembroke skyrocketed during the pandemic. So 80% of skyrocketing is still not necessarily affordable for somebody whose wage is still sitting there. So I certainly look forward to hearing from the province in terms of some regulations and how they plan to square this circle. But for me, I do take issue with the fact that affordable is tied to what houses cost, and it's not actually tied to what people are earning and have available to them. But again, as a first step, I think us at least getting on the same page as the province, as opposed to having our own third definition, does make sense for us to move forward. But it's an interesting way of looking at what's affordable.
Deputy Mayor, and then I have Councillor Giacono.
Just for a point of information, CMHC used the guideline no more than 30% of your gross income per month should go towards housing. It'll be interesting to see if under the CMHC programs that we will be finding out on the 29th of this month on a Zoom call for housing developers and stakeholders, whether they still use that for all their programs, or they use this 80% rule. The other thing about affordable housing is the word attainable. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario have brought that fact. You can't have 5 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment, so it's very challenging. So the challenges are still there, and they have to be overcome.
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just finally, I think there has to be a definite correlation between salary versus the availability of affordable housing, and how does that transpire, and who defines that? Is it the municipality? Is it the province at large, based on an average across the whole province, based on assessment? Or is it defined through the municipal government, which I think it should be, because each region has different salary ranges. I mean, people working, in high tech or working in Toronto on, on York Street or Adelaide Street West have much larger salaries than the average person working here. So somehow that has to come together. And I believe that, as we're all aware, there are 1,350 people waiting for, social housing units within our community, within Renfrew County. And to me, that's a message that says there's a bit of an imbalance here. I just hope that when this comes together, the municipality will be able to step forward and say, look, this is what will happen. It'll allow people, not that are destitute, but people that are struggling to make a living, 2 homeowners, husband and a wife, maybe a couple little kiddies, can't find a home or can't get an apartment because it's just totally out of reach. There has to be some consideration for those people as well. Thank you.
So that concludes the second item under this agenda this evening. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn this public meeting of council. I have Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our combined committee for August 8th, Pembroke City Council. First, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Any motion, any declaration of community interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Approval, amendment of the meeting agenda. We have Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? Approved. Approval of minutes of combined committee for July 11th. Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Frenier. Those in favor? Carried. Any business from those minutes? Seeing none, we'll proceed to our new business. First of all, we have the feline wellness clinics, and we have some special guests tonight also, and we'll have Ms. Martin speak to that and introduce our special guests.
Good evening. During the negotiations of the city's animal pound services agreement in 2022 with the Ontario SPCA, one of the issues that came up was the amount of feral cats in the city of Pembroke. And to help us with that, the SPCA suggested that council support a cat sterilization program, and to do that, to introduce a reserve fund for the matter. The agreement had that council contributed $360 for every cat or kitten that was brought to the SPCA between June 15th, 2022 and the end of August of this year. The fund was established in July of 2022. So recent discussions with representatives of the Ontario SPCA have been around the City of Pembroke hosting a MASH-style feline wellness clinic. And joining me this evening are Bonnie Bishop, East Regional Manager, Community Outreach Services of the Ontario SPCA and the Humane Society, and Heather Job, the Ontario SPCA Renfrew County Animal Centre Community Outreach Coordinator. And they're available here this evening to answer any questions that committee may have regarding the Ontario SPCA wellness clinics. So since COVID, there's been an increase in pet ownership and a decrease in the number of veterinarians taking on new clients, which has resulted in many pet owners being unable to obtain spay, neuter, or basic wellness services for their pet. The number of cats that the city of Pembroke has brought to the SPCA during the year has stayed around the same number, even though we are no longer bringing feral cats to the SPCA. So the number has definitely increased. To assist with this issue, the SPCA offers two types of wellness clinics. One is a mobile spay-neuter clinic, and you've probably seen these units. It's a 38-foot mobile unit that travels across the province, offering spay-neuter services as well as wellness services to underserviced pet families. At this time, the unit is stationed elsewhere in the province and is unavailable to our area at this time. The mobile MASH-style clinic travels also to various locations across the province, offering, again, a low-cost option to spay, neuter, and provide wellness services, vaccine, or microchipping to their feline pets. The clinic requires a suitable location, an indoor community room or hall, with electricity, portable running water, washrooms, and the internet. The SPCA provides the medical teams, which are licensed veterinarians and registered veterinary technicians, and one team can perform approximately 25 surgeries per day. The Ontario SPCA assists in the promotion of the event, assists with looking for a suitable location, and will assist with booking registrations and collecting payments for the services and products prior to the event being held. These clinics are not meant to replace regular veterinary care, but to provide a low-cost option to allow pet owners to spay-neuter their pet and to provide routine preventative wellness care. Should an Ontario SPCA feline MASH-style wellness clinic become available, would committee like to move forward with providing a clinic to city residents, and we would ask for proof of residence? And if so, targeted advertising through social media, posters, as well as telephone calls to various social service agencies to reach selected areas of need within the city would be completed. The city would be responsible for the host fee for the wellness clinic and the cost for the location. The Ontario SPCA indicates that clinics are normally held over 3 days. Committee could also consider funding or partially funding the following: the spay-neuter service, the feline wellness vaccine, and there are 3, and/or microchipping. As far as financial implications, the Feline Spay-Neuter Reserve Fund that Council has established is currently sitting at approximately $44,000. And we have 1 month remaining to add to that reserve fund. The cost to host a clinic is approximately $2,500 per day, and most clinics are held over 3 days. The cost to spay a female or neuter a male cat is approximately $100. Vaccine, which include rabies, distemper, and feline leukemia, are available for $25 each, and microchips are approximately $35. The cost to fund the location of the clinic would vary depending on the location chosen. While the exact cost of the clinic would depend on the preferred option selected by committee, fully sponsoring a 1-day clinic, including sterilization and vaccinations, would cost up to $6,875, plus the cost of the hall rental. The daily cost includes the $2,500 daily hosting fee, the $2,500 for spay-neutering charges, and approximately $1,875 for all 3 vaccination, assuming that 25 cats are being treated per day. The city's reserve was created to control the cat population. As such, one option could be to consider sponsorship and subsidization of the base clinic and spay-neuter costs only. So for a full 3-day full sponsorship, including spay-neuter and the 3 vaccines, would cost approximately $20,625. And if we do a a sponsorship of just the spay-neuter services over the 3 days, the clinic would cost approximately $1,500. So staff is looking for direction. First one is to approve staff continue to work with the Ontario SPCA representatives to offer a feline wellness clinic to City of Pembroke residents. And the second is, if committee wishes to proceed, direction is required on the types of services to be offered at a City of Pembroke feline wellness clinic.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Could you repeat the 2 different costs again? I didn't hear that.
So if committee were to consider 3 full-day sponsorship, including the spay-neuter costs as well as the 3 vaccines, it would cost approximately $20,625 for the 3-day clinic. If committee wished to subsidize just the spay-neuter costs, it would be approximately $15,000 for those 3 days, plus the cost of hosting or not hosting, but the location of the hall. But committee can decide anything in between that. They can look at a percentage, they can look at, partially subsidizing. It's really up to committee to decide what they would like to move forward with.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor to questions and comments. Councillor Frenier.
Hi, thanks for coming. We all know that feral cats is a problem in our community, and that was the original reason for setting up this reserve, was to try to handle the feral cat population. We originally looked into TNR, and I know Councillor Abdallah and I both looked at videos in other communities, and that is the program I support. However, we haven't had the time to recruit. There's individuals in our community that are already taking in feral cats. It's very hard to trap a feral cat because obviously they're a wild cat. They don't trust people, that kind of thing. That's where I want to see this go, is to partner with these groups that are already in place. That being said, that hasn't happened yet. So I think we need to move forward. But my preference is not to just take over all the care of these animals. It's to neuter them or spay them, to try to control the population. So I would say as many as we can spay and neuter now, that is our priority. The reason we're reaching out, and I was part of the conversations with you ladies when we were negotiating all this, is to reach out to individuals that can't afford the service, primarily because often what happens is they get their child a kitty cat and they can't afford to spay or neuter it. And then subsequently what happens is there's 6 kittens appear and they sometimes release them at a farm or something like that, and because they can't afford it. That's what we have to stop. So that's why we need to reach out to those individuals who mean well and say, you know, we know you, if you have a cat or a kitten, this service is available to you if you live in the city of Pembroke. So I really want to see us try to focus in on the spay neuter only at this point rather than vaccines and that type of thing, because I feel that's what we need to get on top of first. And if we start to see a reduction in the numbers over the next couple of years, maybe then we can reach out for care as well. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I want to hear from the other councillors, but now the 15,000, if I could just clarify something. 15,000 would be a 3-day spay neuter, but it would be additional for facility, because I thought that the 20,625 included everything. So if I could just get more clarification on the numbers.
So that would include the $2,500 daily fee of hosting the clinic. And it would also include up to 25 cats to be spayed or neutered during that one day at the clinic. So it's $5,000 a day times 3
For
the
everything.
3-day clinic.
So that would be all
For the
inclusive.
spay neuter service, 100 being funded at 100%, plus the $2,500 mobile fee per day. But we would also, on top of that, have to pay for the hall rental.
Oh, okay, okay.
All those options, we would still have to pay for the hall
Have
rental.
to pay. So then, in that case, I would be in favor of going with the 3-day spay neuter for the lower rate, because there are other expenses. Because that would take care of 75 cats, correct? Okay. That's correct. That's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Keel, and then Councillor Plummer, then Councillor Purcell. Councillor Keel?
So we're screening them to be Pembroke residents. Are we also screening them to have their cat tags?
I believe that would be part of what we can definitely do. We could have one of the animal control bylaw officers being there.
Well, that would certainly be my expectation would certainly be that the very least they can do is have a tag like the rest of us that purchase animals and are required to have tags. So the one thing that I'm getting a little confused, well, not confused on, but so Councillor Lafreniere was I think talking about 2 elements: the feral, non-owned. They're sort of running amok. Obviously, this would not be assisting directly in that, but I did hear Councillor Lafreniere's concern that it might be indirectly assisting. I'm having a small problem wrapping my head around what is essentially a pet welfare system paid for by other taxpayers that are paying for all of this themselves. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have loved for some assistance when my Great Dane had to get neutered, but obviously there was none. I understand that there are some residents in the city of Pembroke, and that for them cost and whatnot is an issue. But at the same time, they're choosing to get the animal. They're choosing to pay for the animal. They're paying for food for the animal. I mean, to me, this is part of your built-in responsibility cost when you're choosing to get an animal. I mean, $15,000 is a lot of money, and there's a lot of pulls on the public purse. So at the moment, I guess I'm struggling with that one, and we have 2 experts here today, and if there's some thought that you think might sway me one way or the other, that this might help more with the feral population, which is a burden on the city and is something that no one individual taxpayer is responsible for. I'd love to. Right now, my mind's certainly open, but I guess I'm in a hesitant spot at the moment.
Good evening. When we talk about the feral cats or the community cat population, I mean, they get there because they were domesticated cats that somebody took into their home, and now they're either in heat or they're spraying, and they're now discarded and put out on the street, and then your community cat problem just repeats itself. So I understand what you're saying about supporting spaying and neutering, and I understand that. I mean, the vaccinations are nice, but the spaying and neutering to deal with the overpopulation issue is obviously the priority. Now, in terms of ownership, there are other municipalities that we're working with who have opted to do a means test, and those are for individuals who have a household income of a certain fee, and those people are signed up through the program, and they're the only people that are eligible. Also, there are some great rescues working in the local communities here, and they could be your priority. You could sign up your rescues first. And then any opportunities that aren't filled there, then you could open up a few extra spots to the community. But you have great rescues that are working here, and they are dealing with the community cats, the feral cats, unowned cats. They are working with those. And a lot of those rescues are paying for it out of their own pocket. So to be able to help rescues in the community that are already doing great work by giving the spots to them first would be fantastic.
Okay, and supplementary, Councillor Keel, no? Okay. Councillor Plummer, then Councillor Purcell, then the Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm on the same, I guess, track as Councillor Keel, saying that of the opinion that if we're supposed to be dealing with the feral cat population and trying to get that under control, and not really providing just a free service to, say, city residents because they chose, for whatever circumstances they were brought upon them, didn't decide to get their cats neutered. And as a, someone who decides to take on the responsibility of a pet, there's also financial responsibilities that happen too. So I would not be in support of just opening this up to a first come, first served basis in the community. I hear what our representatives from the OSPCA are here saying open up to rescues. I think that's a great idea that's been proposed on council that we didn't have in the report. I would be in support of that if it directly helps affect the feral cat population. And for a reduction, I would be in support of that, but I would not be in support of just a free service for the city of Pembroke.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you for your presentation. I totally agree. I think, opening it up to, in terms of prioritizing the rescues, would be appropriate. Again, that spay and neuter reserve fund is for that purpose, not so much for vaccinations, although I do understand the frustrations in terms of getting animals into veterinarian services is very difficult. And I know that there's a lack of service providers and an increase in terms of animal owners. So that is an issue. But unfortunately, I think starting out, I think the best thing to do is to kind of identify and prioritize the rescues and work with those, and then if there's spots available, then I would say open it up to the general public. So, thank you.
Mayor Gervais.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to begin, I think it's unfortunate that some individuals get pets and don't quite understand what they're getting into and so forth. And unfortunately, instead of taking the appropriate steps, they tend to, and we see it all over Facebook and whatnot. You got a bunny rabbit for your kid at Easter time, and then okay, Easter's over with. What do we do with the bunny rabbit? So that's concerning, but like this whole issue, I recognize that right now there's a challenge in terms of vets, but I can recall having a meeting, I believe you were present, there was Dr. Hobart, I believe, was there was someone from one of the pet food stores, and talking about this TNR concept and so forth to try and get a handle on feral cat populations. And in Pembroke at the time, I think there was 3 different colonies that there was. And what's interesting is when you talk to the animal control personnel, he would say some of them clearly were domesticated and so forth because they'll come up to me and start purring and want attention. They're not the skittish type, they're the type that want attention. So someone has chosen to bring them where the other cats are and leave them there. And I realize that this will sound harsh for me to say this, but for other individuals to constantly be feeding these different feral cat populations and making them healthier and then in turn, breeding and populating some more. So it's just an ongoing issue. So I tend to join my fellow councillors in terms of how to address it, and really it's to address this feral cat population. In terms of individuals, I feel bad for the animals, I really do, but people need to smarten up and quit buying animals and taking on animals if they can't afford it or can't take care of them, or just choose not to do it. Like, they shouldn't be doing that. But I think really that's where the focus needs to be, to try and drive down our feral cat population in Pembroke. We know that there's some colonies and we need to address them. So I join my fellow councillors on that point.
Thank you. So Councillor Lafreniere, then Councillor Giacono, then someone can entertain a motion, probably. Yeah.
So, yeah, I support everything that they're saying. Like, rescues first, great idea. If you, because I don't have contact with them, I do know of one. But if you could arrange that, I think that's how we have to start, because those are the cats we're trying to reach, and they're not going to come to us. But just a little background for the new councillors that weren't here. Part of the agreement between the SPCA and this council was that a program would be set up to either trap, neuter, release. We really didn't focus in on what we were going to do, but we did assure them we would spend the money we're saving on spay neuter. Okay, so I just want to know, this is just not extra money. This is money we're actually saving in a sense, because they're not taking in our feral cats anymore. We were spending this every year for them to house these feral cats. So this is money we're not spending, but it's not that it isn't needed to be dedicated to that service. So I just want you to know that. So yeah, I would suggest rescues first, and then we would look at how many rescues. And if we have the capacity to spay and neuter 75, but we only have 40, then I would say, what is the wish of council then? Do we reach out in the other way? Because this money will be there again next year. So we should try to get as many spayed and neutered before the winter as we can. So that is my question to this council, is do we ask them to pursue the other avenue as well, or just the rescues and leave the other money there? So I'm asking that.
Should-
And I would suggest we
Yes.
spend as much.
Ms. Job?
I think the key here is to recognize that the whole goal is to be working collaboratively with these rescues that are in turn really working with individuals, right, in the community that have a lack of access to care. So I love the approach of working with the different rescues, because really the rescues are working for the community, right? So we're all totally tied together and working towards the same goal. The reality is that the access to care is not there. So whether you have the money or not, we need to provide a service. So that's kind of where we need to hit it hard, but realize that, we're not the only ones here. There are lots of rescues in Renfrew County that we have great connections with. So I think this is very attainable. This approach is solid, and it is. It's not just a one-off, right? This is the beginning of educating our community on how this is going to work, and it shows, it is a community responsibility too. So it's not only the individual, it's everybody working together, so.
Yes.
So someone mentioned that it's more like a social service for, pet owners. It's not really. In the sense it is, but in the sense it's a proactive move to not getting in this situation down the road again. So the more that we can provide these families to get this animal spay and neutered, we're spending good money is what I'm saying. It's a preventive measure. Or else we're going to be spending this money with the rescues infinity, forever. So that's the only thing, is it's a preventive measure. So anyway, that's my last comment. I think we...
Okay. Councillor Giacono?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what's been said around the table. A lot of individuals within our community that are not pet owners will say, why should I pay for somebody's irresponsibility? they have the pet, they should be responsible for it. But in the interim, the people that do not have a pet, and if there's a feral cat or a cat that's not being housed properly, digging up their garden beds, then they're impacted too. So I think, there's got to be an omnipresent solution, and I believe that what is being proposed tonight will offset that and help reduce the population of the cats within the community. And people have to be educated, as you said. If you are a pet owner, there's a price tag that comes with that. You just don't get a cute little kitty cat, and then a year or two down the road, when you decide to move, and your renter says, "Sorry, we don't take cats," out they go. That's really, it's brutal, and there's got to be some education. Thank you.
So we'll need a motion. Councillor Plummer, I believe you're the next to speak.
Thank you. So I would move that we move ahead with the 3-day spade and neuter clinic with the OSPCA, focusing on the rescues as top priority in recruiting the service.
Does that have an income element to it?
Well, I believe the 3-day, the spade neuter, we were given the income was $15,000 for just
Or
the spade neuter.
income means test? Or just open to anyone
No,
after the feral rescues are done?
I guess we don't really know that until we figure out how many spots we have available. So I would say at this point, we just focus on the rescues, and at that point, if there's spots left at the end, we can open it up, but I'm not going to put a stipulation at this time.
Seconder? Yes, Councillor Keel. Any further discussion? Ms. Martin, yes?
Can I just get a clarification? So for the rescue organizations, are we talking about rescue organizations in Renfrew County or just the city of Pembroke? Just a clarification.
Well, we're focusing on the city, as it's city dollars and taxpayer dollars, so we should focus on certainly the area, the rescues that directly impact the city of Pembroke first. And then, as I say, if the spots are full, or if there's still spots available, we can then look to other citizens, the city of Pembroke, to bring in their cats.
So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? No? Councillor Jagano.
Question, Mr. Chair, towards our guests. Is there any federal or provincial money to help offset these costs rather than coming to, the individual municipalities? There's none at present? Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor. Those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Councillor Keel.
Just in terms of the pet tag directive, I don't think we would need a motion for that, but I'm just wondering if council's direction,
But the rescues are fair.
not the rescues, but for the other ones, that we should expect them to have pet tags.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think we need a motion, but
No.
if Heidi wanted direction on that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Bishop and Ms. Jobe, for coming. And I had a chance to visit the one in Shady Nook with my wife a few months ago. Very impressive and very well run. So we're looking forward to the program and working with your group. Thank you. Next item, bylaw to regulate recreational open-air burning. Chief Sell is on vacation. So in this place, we have CEO Mr. Unruh to speak to that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff is looking for direction from the committee in regards to, one, if the committee wishes to reopen the existing bylaw, and then get further direction on some of the updates that would be required in that bylaw. So the report has been circulated previously or earlier, and I won't go through it verbatim, but just to say that we have had a bylaw in place at the City of Pembroke since 2004. We did re-evaluate it in 2019, and at that time we did open up 2 public pits at Riverside Park. However, they haven't been used as much by the public, but more by city staff. So that was a good direction at that point and well utilized. So a report was provided on June 22nd to the committee, and one of the recommendations from that report was to complete a survey. So that survey to the public was completed or closed on July 22nd. And that report comprised of 13 questions, plus an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. In my viewpoint, we had a tremendous response. We had 458 responses from the survey, so I thought that was a good response. I'm not going to go through all the responses, but just one of the highlights was that over it was a resounding yes that they wanted to kind of expand the use of recreational burning. Sorry about that. So in regards to providing direction, so I'm on page 4 now of the report. Some of the options that were discussed and are further outlined is that one is that we can continue to use the existing bylaw. It is strongly recommend that the current bylaw be amended to incorporate some of the wording with respect to ceremonial or sacred fires, and then provide some direction in regards to dangerous conditions, i.e. wind speed and things like that. Item 2, include the items listed in option 1, but remove the geographical barriers. So currently the existing bylaw has a geographical barrier. It's not open up to all City of Pembroke residents. And then provide a recommended 4-meter setback from combustible structures and objects. The survey results show that 3 out of 4 respondents believe the current clearance distance is safe. So that's the 4 meters. The third option is to set up zones in which specific types of fires would be permitted. For example, one zone could incorporate all current areas approved to have fires, allowing all types of recreational fires. And whereas other zones may be only allowed certain types of fires using certain types of appliances, i.e. smokeless appliances or appliances that have the covers on them. The fourth option is to vary the clearance distance, i.e. open fire pit would require 5 meters, or if a device was used like a chimney, would require 3-meter clearance. And then another option is to recommend the time of a new bylaw align with, but the recommended timelines of fires would be between 6 and 11 p.m. So you can have a fire at midnight or 1 a.m. So that was some of the options that were outlined. Just to kind of highlight, the majority of the respondents, 63%, had no concerns with fire permits and opening it up further. To the items, aside from smell, noise, safety, were 1, the relationship between burning carbon-based products, wood, and the effects the production of smoke, carbon dioxide, and other pollutants has on the environment. The dangers of smoke and links to both short-term and long-term health effects are not new. So that was one of the ones that highlighted. And then the question and concerns have been raised about the conflict of interest between backyard fires and the city's climate action plan. So we're embarking on a new, or not a new, but we continue our journey along with the climate action plan. And so is this contrary to that plan itself? So in regards to financial impacts, it's similar to what we have currently in place. I just wanted to highlight the item under the 3rd paragraph. And it states that there is a potential for increased costs due to responses caused by nuisance calls and complaints, although most neighboring municipalities do not experience many complaints. So currently, Renfrew does have no geographical boundaries on their bylaw, and they get 3 responses a year under the non-restrictive. Otherwise, currently with our constraint bylaw that we do have, we average 15 calls for unimproved. So that's my report. If there's any questions or comments.
So you're looking for comments from council, and then you'll take them back to the chief, and he'll come back with the final bylaw?
Yes, that's correct. But I guess the first question is, do we want the bylaw to be opened up, or are we okay with the existing? So that's the first. And then the second would be, in regards to some of the options that I outlined, the 1 through 5 that are outlined on page 4, is there any of those that are no-goes for council that we shouldn't include in the draft bylaw, or should we include all of them?
So we'll need a couple of motions then. Basically.
Well, yes, or you include
Right.
it in one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, first we have Councillor Keel, then Mayor Gervais, then Councillor Plummer. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's going to be my recommendation that we proceed with option 2, supplemented with options 4 and 5. So I certainly, and I think it was the mayor the last time we spoke about this that talked about, that if we're going to open it up, it's going to need to be regulated. And I certainly am not going to disagree with that. It's a privilege. It's not a must. I think if this council was to take a pass at it again, it would be the second time that the people have told council what they would like, and it would be the second time that council ignored them. The last council, it was over 60% that was in favor of opening up the bylaw, and there was a pass taken on that one. This one is rather overwhelming. It's actually significantly higher than the 60% we saw the last time. But if you're going to give people privileges, I think you do have to, it's going to come with the cost of both being a permit holder, which can also be suspended, and it's going to come with certain rules. I have no issue with the wind speed. I have no issue with the issue of noise. We already have a noise bylaw that shuts things down at 11. I have no problem with this going with that. In terms of fire timelines, there were a number of comments in the comment section that dealt with, people having their windows open during the day and laundry out on the line or whatnot. I do wonder if we might, and I want to hear from our other councillors on this one, if we might want to extend into afternoons in the winter. I think there's fewer people with windows open and things on the line in the winter months. So I would be open to being a bit more permissive in the winter for fires. In the summers, let's be honest, I don't think many people at 3 o'clock are thinking, let's go sit around a campfire. I mean, I think that's generally regarded as an evening activity. So it would be my recommendation that a new bylaw be developed in concert with the results of the survey, in pursuant to option 2, supplemented by 4 and 5, and the CAO's nodding at me, so I think he got the gist of that one. And I'm going to call this. We discussed this I think at length the last time around, so I'm going to call it quits now because I think we're going to have a long evening.
Okay, Mayor Gervais.
Thank you, and I think I'm on the same page as Councillor Keel. I think this is appropriate time to have staff redraft the bylaw, come back to us, let us look at it and so forth. If for no other reason, when you look at number 1, talking about ceremonial and sacred fires, it's interesting, and I will share this with council, the number of instances where there is requests made, and because it's not in the bylaw, then the chief gets to deal with it. Because we have an Indigenous population, a large Indigenous population in our community, there are a number of requests for ceremonial and sacred fires, and trying to deal with it when it's not in the bylaw. So it's better to have it in the bylaw. For all the other items, I'm in the same comments as Councillor Keel in terms of, I have no issue with 4 meters. It would be nice to believe that the public, all on their own, would have respect for one another, and if they see clothes on the line and so forth, that they would do certain things, but that's not always the case. So certainly having, a certain timeline, having a certain distance, i.e., like the 4 meters and so forth. And one item that I do share as well with Councillor Keel is having the financial end of it covered, so that if the fire department is showing up to address something, that there is consequences to that. Perhaps maybe it's not pulling the permit on the first go, but a substantial enough financial penalty that it at least tries to offset some of the costs, so the rest of the taxpayers aren't paying for it. So total agreement with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plummer?
I'll just echo my fellow councillors in saying that yes, the bylaw should be opened. We should certainly take a look at implementing a bunch of the different points brought forward by Chief as well as the survey. I think it's a prudent time to look at this. It was looked at before and it did not pass. I think it's a good time for this new council to take a look at it again. And I would just again echo my fellow councillors in saying that, yep, we should definitely look at this again. Thanks.
Councillor Giacono, and then Councillor Frenier.
Mr. Chair, I don't care if people boot me out next time around. I'm going to feel and speak the way I think is proper for the benefit of all the population. We look, 15 years ago, if you would have told me climate change is coming, I would have said that's a crock. But look around you. Look at what's happening, the torrential rains, the summers we have not had. The winters are different. Things are different. And a lot of that, look at the wildfires across the world. Look at the reefs, they're disappearing across the oceans. So just because 400 and some people say, you know what, I'd really like to have a fire, but I really don't care about the earth. I don't care if my children are going to, inherit a legacy that will be terrible. That's pretty selfish. That's pretty selfish. I would like to have a fire at my house too. But I look around and I see what's happening across the world. And if any of us say it's not happening, then I think we've got a problem. So the survey says, the survey says, if that's what the survey wants, it won't be going with my approval. And I want people to know that. If you feel selfish enough to say, I don't care about anybody else, I don't care about the planet, but I'd like to have a fire and roast a hot dog, then so be it. But I'll vote against it. Thank you.
Councillor Frenier?
So I'm looking at the options that were given to us through our fire department, and it's saying that some of the options are viewed as essential requirements, and I agree. And one that I think I would like to see, I agree with what's been said, but I think it's really important to set up zones. I don't think we can just carte blanche everybody to say everybody can have a fire, because some yards are huge in the city, some are not. So number 3 says set up zones in which specific types of fires would be permitted. And I think that I would want to see that in there, because if my neighbor had a really tiny yard, I don't think I'd want an open fire pit, because the smoke would be a lot more intrusive than one of the little chimeneas or a propane fire. So I'd like to see the zones incorporated. And I mean, this is something we can discuss later. I guess tonight, in theory, we're either supporting it or we're not. But I do think that's important, because a lot of the individuals that were not in favor of it said, we have a tiny backyard and the neighbor has a tiny backyard. And that was their main reason, was they didn't want the smoke coming in. So I can understand a lot of yards in the city where they shouldn't be. And I hear Councillor Giacono, and there's lots of things going on in the world right now where I say, why is this still happening with climate? But people still burn wood in their furnaces. People still have campfires at campsites, and throughout Riverside Park they have them. And I guess what I'm hearing is the individuals that live in the city pay a lot of taxes. and they can't do half the things that people in the country do. And so I guess that's what I did here. No, it is, and I have heard that. It's like I want to be able to enjoy my yard. And I think that to a point that's true, but as long as their yard is big enough that they can contain their fire and keep it as less intrusive as possible. So that's why I think the zones are super important. I still maintain clearance distances should be as much as we can, and I know they're saying 4 meters should be good, and the individuals are comfortable with that, but I would rather see 5 meters. I don't think every yard in Pembroke should have a fire. I do think some individuals should, and that's where I'm going to stay, except for the very last point, number 5, the timeline, as Councillor Keel said. Like in the summer, windows are open, so there's going to be more chance people are going to get smoke. In the winter, people's windows are closed, and maybe they want a daytime campfire, roast marshmallows with their family. So I would think that in the winter we would be less concerned about it being at night from 6 till 11. So that would be my other suggestion there. But, and you know, my last point is that I'm surprised fireworks haven't been banned across the world, because I mean, I love the fireworks, but that's a main contributor to a lot of pollution that is going up in our air. So anyway, I've been hearing from the people that they want this, so I am supporting it as long as zones are set up and clearance distances are 5 meters.
Supplementary or another final comment by Councillor Keel.
So I think with the, and I was listening to Councillor Lafreniere very, very carefully. So with the zones, what that has typically meant in this thing would be, for instance, Kingston has divided itself at the 401, such that everyone north of the 401 has almost no restrictions. They can have campfires, brush fires, those kinds of things. Whereas within the, I guess, the city proper, that's been designated as a separate zone, where there, of course, were the several meter setbacks, and in some cases they actually require you to have an enclosed. So if you actually wanted to build a fireplace in your backyard, 3-sided, that would be allowed. But if you were a block from Queen's University, you can't just have an open fire pit. So that's what it meant by zones. But I mean, I guess my comment would be is most of your comments I thought had to do mostly with the setbacks as opposed to zones, because how would we, like you were talking, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, about more specific yards, as opposed to saying, well, the west end can do this, but the east end can do this. So I think what I was hearing was more that we really need to pay attention to the setbacks, and maybe a yard area requirement, which isn't discussed in here. And I'd be willing to look at all of those. Personally, I'm okay with the 4 meters simply because that's what the city has had. There's been no problems raised by it. And the one thing that I said to the deputy mayor, and I hope he doesn't mind me repeating this, is if there's some tweaks that needs to be made to this, I'll be the first person to say next year, let's, you know, I would even be fine if council wanted to say, you know, at the end of next year, let's put a 1-year review on it. And I don't think we necessarily need a motion, but maybe the CAO could agree to that. So certainly I realize we're opening things up. I'm saying 4 meters has worked for us, let's stick with that. But I'm certainly not going to sit here and pretend that I'm closed to the idea that this could need tweaking over time. And I would certainly be happy to both continue having a conversation with the public and my fellow councillors to make sure that we do get this right, because I recognize that we are talking about a fairly large revamp. I mean, this hasn't really changed, I think, since, was it 2004, Mr. Unruh, the original bylaw?
Yeah, 2004 was the original.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a pretty big revamp, so I'd be most happy, whatever we determine this year, I'd be most happy to look at and potentially tweak next year to make sure that we get it right, and I'm committed to ensuring that we get it right.
So, okay, Councillor Purcell.
Yeah, I agree in terms of the setbacks. The 4-meter setback is appropriate. You know, I came from over in Aluminum Island, spent the last 3 weeks there, off and on, and, you know, there's multiple fires at every property and really no issues and no concerns. There hasn't been any issues or concerns in terms of where the areas that I come from Aluminum Island anyway, in regards to recreational fires. Where it becomes a concern is when people decide to use different fuel. Burning garbage or burn barrels and those kinds of things. So we need to be really cognizant in regards to the procedure that we do have that spelled out in terms of what fuel that will be used, and also the promotion of the smokeless fire rings. You know, I bought one for my wife. She's probably going to kill me for her birthday. A fire ring, believe it or not, but smokeless fire ring burns really efficient. So there's some good opportunities out there that you don't get the smoke, or very little smoke off a fire. So I think we kind of introduced some of those appliances and some of the conditions, and I do like the dangerous conditions definition. And I do favor in terms of expanding, you know, the hours of recreational fires in the fall and in the winter time. Again, the fall though brings up, we just don't want people burning leaves, right? Those kinds of things, because it causes unsafe conditions, and again, additional smoke that make it a nuisance for neighboring properties. So I think we're on the right track here. You know, I think we've done our due diligence in going out to our residents and kind of understanding their wishes. I do hear your concerns, Councillor Jackno, in regards to climate change and climate issues, and you know, we are Canadian, and I think we're probably one of the least contributors in terms of the carbon footprint compared to you know, other you know, countries around the world. And I think, you know, we are making strides to move forward. And, you know, again, we can look at this as we move forward to see, you know, how that plays out in terms of our strategy moving forward. So.
Thank you. If I can speak from the chair. This is a delicate matter for many residents, and it's something that I, you know, thought very closely about last time. And last time I supported a pilot project with a 5-meter distance. I'm concerned about setbacks, like Councillor Frenier and other councillors are. I will support the opening the bylaw, and with the comments going back to the CEO, through the CEO to the chief. Personally, in our yard, even with the 3 meters, I don't think that we'd be able to have a fire. You know, I do like the idea of the setbacks. Every house is different, but some houses are very close together, and they won't be able to have a fire. I think overall, it's going to depend on the community, on the neighbors getting along and working it out, being responsible. And I would like a review after 1 year, if we could do that. I sit on the Beautification and Climate Advisory Committee with Councillor Jackano, and I take climate change very seriously. I hear you. Do you? Yes, I do. But this is something, as Councillor Purcell said, we're Canadian. Some people don't have a cottage. Some people live in town and they want to have a fire in their backyard with their children, or just to enjoy over a cup of cocoa, or, you know, marshmallow roast. Not everyone in Pembroke is going to have a fire. Like, how many people are going to have a fire? I'm banking on offsetting this carbon footprint with the city adopting a pilot project for electric minibus transit system to get people off the road in their cars. We are members of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities climate change program, and we are committed to that. We're investing money in that program, and we have to be committed because we passed that. So that is ongoing, and this is an item that, you know, it's something people want, and after 1 year we'll review it. And we're in the climate change program with the Federation, so we have other ways to lower the climate impact of that. I'm very happy that there's a wind speed regulation in it. So Yes, Councillor Giacono.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, I don't have a problem with the sacred fire. People have been around for thousands of years. It's a religious ceremony. You know, it has certain significance to our Indigenous friends and neighbors. And my only other outlook is that I don't want to personally contribute to the demise of my planet, even though Councillor Purcell says, well, we're the least polluters in the world. That's okay. But charity begins at home and with a single step. If we set the example, maybe the other 220 people that have signed the Paris Accord, you know, will agree with what we're doing. And the largest polluters, China, has not signed the accord, so they don't give a darn. So what we're saying basically is, well, doesn't really matter. They're doing whatever they want. We might as well have a fire. So consciously, I cannot vote on that particular principle because to me, it is a principle. It's not about, as I said, you know, you can have a fire because you got a bigger yard. You can't have a fire. If you're going to have a fire, I guess, you know, let's do it. Let's just destroy the earth. And I mean, that's what's happening. Maybe you won't have a fire because the torrential rains won't allow you to light it based on the, you know, the carbon footprint. And we're seeing that every day. So if our philosophy is, doesn't matter, and that's what council wants, then so be it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, City Enrod, would you like a motion to open up the fire bylaw and take these comments back?
No, I don't need a motion.
Okay.
We have a direction.
Thank you.
So the direction that we've received is that we'll open it up, and we've noted all the different comments, so we'll be bringing a draft bylaw back to council.
Thank you. Second here. Next, we have Center Street Parking Report. Mr. Hutton, welcome back. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. A recent complaint was brought to the city's attention that vehicles were parked on Center Street behind 353 McKay Street, which is Greg Gables Inn. A bylaw enforcement officer reviewed the parking bylaw and found that the bylaw states that there is, in fact, no parking on both sides of Center Street, between Herbert and Esther Streets. Since this is a no parking zone, as it's written in the bylaw, signage was erected to reflect this. When the signage was erected, the owners of Grey Gables called with concerns about this area being signed as a no parking zone and stated that they require this on-street parking for their business. The owners originally requested parking only on the west side of Center Street, but between Esther and Herbert Streets. The Operations Department has reviewed this request and based on the reduced roadway width, cannot support parking on both sides of the street, but can support parking on the west side of Center Street, but between Alfred Street and Herbert Street. The Operations Department cannot recommend any parking on Center Street between Alfred Street and Esther Street due to the fact that there is barrier curbing and any parking would be located directly in the driving lane. The Operations Department can support parking on the west side of Center Street between Herbert Street and Dixon Street, and the Fire Department is in agreement with the Operations Department's comments. Presently, there is parking permitted on the north side of Herbert Street from McKay Street to William Street. The parking bylaw prohibits parking on the south side of Herbert Street from McKay Street to William Street. Further parking is permitted on the west side of Center Street between Herbert and Dixon Streets. The owners of Grey Gables did meet with the mayor and staff and were satisfied with staff's recommendation. Therefore, the Planning Department, Operations Department, and Fire Department are recommending that the parking bylaw be amended to permit parking on the west side of Center Street between Herbert Street and Alfred Street, and that the east side of Center Street between Herbert Street and Esther Street remain a no parking zone. A bylaw has been prepared for tonight's meeting of council.
We have a bylaw coming up in council. Any comments at committee level? Councillor Keel, then we have Mayor Gervais.
I fully support this recommendation. I think it was great work, both on behalf of the city and the owners of Grey Gables, who I know are here tonight. They have kept going an absolutely phenomenal business at Grey Gables. I know I hear from from local visiting judges that stay there how nice it is. I've been there countless times for dinner, and we've had some of our law lunches there. I think this is an example of how things should work, is that when we find a problem, we sit down together cooperatively and positively and look towards a resolution. I'm glad to hear that they're in agreement with this particular recommendation, and so I would move that we accept the recommendation and proceed to the bylaw later tonight.
Okay, we have motion, seconder Councillor Frenier. Speaker, we have Mayor Gervais and then Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo what Councillor Keel has said, it's a valued business in our community. I appreciate that the concern was raised. They came forward to meet with myself and staff, go through the motions of trying to figure out the solution, and knowing that, you know, it also had to pass muster through operations and the fire department to ensure that it made sense from their standpoint. It did, and so I fully support what the motion is, so that it allows Grey Gables to continue to employ many different individuals and provide a valued service to our community, and it works for everyone. So I fully support that motion.
Councillor Plummer, then Councillor Giacono.
Just throwing my support behind the motion, and while saying this is a great example of a business working with the city of Pembroke, coming forward and saying we have a problem, how can we fix it, and, you know, coming up with a solution that suits both parties.
Thank you. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree wholeheartedly. Grey Gables is an attraction that attracts people from not just our area, but I think from all over the world. And when they leave here, you know, it's a cosmopolitan message that they're sending to other people when they go back to their cities, whether it's Ottawa or Toronto, that this is the place to live and that there's a quality type of a facility that is being offered here in our city. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Motion on the floor to accept the recommendation for the parking on Centre Street. Those in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Hutton. Have a good evening.
Good evening and thank you. In February 2023, Council approved the 23 capital budget, which included a budget of $89,305 for City Hall foundation repairs, damp proofing, and a flag railing. Recently, as we can see from our portable air conditioning units located in Chambers right now, one of our air conditioning units has failed and is currently undergoing emergency replacement at a cost of $17,900 plus HST. So while this replacement could be considered a capital item, it was not included as part of the 2023 capital budget. So as per the city's procurement bylaw, staff do not have the authority to direct funding to new capital projects without the approval of council. Staff are therefore requesting that the $89,305 City Hall budget be renamed to include capital contingencies for this facility, which would then include the AC unit. So sufficient funding is available in this budget to accommodate this request, and staff is therefore requesting that combined committee approve the renaming of the 2023 City Hall capital budget to include contingencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Gervais.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we rename the 2023 City Hall capital budget to include contingencies.
We have a seconder, Councillor Purcell. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Those in favor? Approved. Thank you. Next item, 2024 budget timelines update.
So at the July 11th meeting of council, the option 2 budget schedule was the preferred option as indicated by committee, with direction to examine meeting start times and or publicly broadcasting deliberation meetings. as well as potentially separating the public budget meeting from the January 16th regular council meeting. So in consultation with city management and staff, staff proposes that based on, the typical limited attendance at budget meetings, staff are comfortable with, joining them together to be included as part of the January 16th regular council meeting. However, should council wish a separate meeting, we do suggest to hold this meeting on Monday, January 15th at 6 p.m. And so this date being very close to the regular council meeting will ensure that there's sufficient time between the different meetings to prepare and publish the next meeting package. And further, to make budget deliberations fully accessible, that the city broadcast all budget deliberation meetings under the following schedule. So day one, schedule being Thursday, January 4th from 9 to 3. Day two being January 5 from 9 to 3. A public budget meeting potentially being Monday, January 15th at 6 p.m. A day three budget deliberation meeting being Friday, February 2nd from 9 to 3, and then the regular budget passing at the February 20th council meeting. So the cost of broadcasting these additional meetings would be included in the 2024 budget, and staff is seeking direction on this 2024 budget schedule clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Open to the floor. Councillor Frenier.
This looks good to me. So do we need a motion or just direction? Just direction?
Yeah, so I guess direction on the public broadcasting and the separate date for
Yeah.
the public
So I
budget
support
meeting.
everything you've got here. I think it looks
Okay.
good. We said we want the public to have more options when it came to coming and listening and seeing it, so I like it. Thanks.
Does that give you enough to go with? Thank you very much. Next item, Mr. Unruh. Event support request, Ribs in the Valley competition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff received a request from the individuals that are proposing or are going to be running the Ribs in the Valley competition, and the request is attached to the report. So in essence, on August 19th, the owners of Norkey Snack Shack have submitted a request that the Ribs in the Valley Charity Amateur Rib Competition be recognized as a municipal significant event, and that would enable them to get a liquor license. The indications from Mr. Lair, who is the one that is organizing this event, is that all the proceeds from the event that will be donated to the grind. So the report is there, the request is there. If there's any additional questions, I'm open.
Councillor Purcell.
Does it also include the proceeds from the alcohol sales in terms of the donation to the grind?
So the indication from the organizer is what you see here. So I'm assuming that all proceeds, but it didn't specify if it was just for the ribs or if it was alcohol sales also.
Just supplementary, I have no concerns with this request.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, there's a bylaw prepared for this tonight? Is that correct?
Yeah, there is a resolution.
Okay, so you don't need a motion right now?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Next item, road closure request.
This item is actually removed. The owner has contacted us, and they'll be postponing the event until next year.
Thank you. Next item, CMHC Housing Solutions presentation. Mr. Unruh.
Yeah, so the Pembroke Affordable Housing Committee have arranged a CMHC Housing Solutions presentation via Zoom on August 29th. And the presentation will be approximately 50 minutes, followed by a 30-minute Q&A. The presentation description is that the Housing Funding Forum presents an innovative opportunity for you to unlock a number of funding resources and contribute to the creation of affordable housing options in the Pembroke area. The forum will host a speaker from CMHC who will share details on current funding opportunities, eligibility criteria, and application process and types of projects that are qualified. The committee, the Pembroke Affordable Housing Committee, is looking at the City of Pembroke to be a sponsor to the presentation and to provide assistance in marketing and advertising. So the cost for the city will just be the staff time in regards to coordinating and promoting the event, which I think will be minimal. There is a lot of events planned already in August. We have the event this coming weekend in regards to the Water and Dirt Fest, so that they're committed to that. But I don't think that this would propose too much of an additional burden on the city. Open up to any questions.
Okay, Councillor Lafreniere, then Councillor Plummer, then Councillor Keel.
So I think that anything we can do to try to promote or support, enticing, if you will, or getting developers interested or learning more, I think the more we can do, the better. I know that, like the county, we often say, the county is in charge of housing, and yes, we do pay a substantial amount of money to the county, but I think the city has to start to become more involved and engaged and work with the county to get these types of projects underway. And Councillor Abdallah invited me to be part of this housing initiative, and I'm so glad he did. We had a great meeting with potential developers about a month ago now, I think, on Zoom, and it was really inspiring. This gentleman is a local gentleman, he's a developer, and he was saying what we need to do is get someone who's really vested and loves the community. Most developers are in it for money, and we know that. I mean, that's their business. We need to get somebody interested that wants to help the community as well. And it's not just going to be all about that. So there may be many partners we need to draw, including the city. Maybe we have property that we're not using. So it's things like that. But I mean, this is a first step in supporting this Zoom meeting. So the more promotion we can get out there, the better. And I think we should really get behind this. Thank you.
Councillor Plummer.
Yeah, just a couple quick comments. First, I think it's important. I think a lot of us, certainly on the campaign trail, spoke about how affordable housing was certainly one of our priorities in trying to get, rents under control here in the city. And the only way to do that is build more housing. It's simple as that. If you don't have the stock or the inventory, there's just simply no way to continue to get rents under control. People are struggling, and rents keep going higher because we just don't have enough buildings to house people. So anything the City of Pembroke can do to basically connect, I think it's more of a connection here from the CMHC connecting with developers and what programs are offered. I think a lot of people just don't know about what the CMHC can do for them. The most people just understand, I want to build a building, go to the bank, get money and build it, and then I got to rent it because I got to pay myself back. But if there is certainly opportunities that CMHC can provide in funding streams, grant programs, I think you'll see a lot of people, maybe some uptake. But we have to promote this and we have to get involved.
Thank you. Councillor Keel.
I completely agree. I'm not sure about Ms. Sorial's current vacation plans or whatnot, but I'm hoping that perhaps someone from her department or Mr. Unruh, if we could get in touch personally with some of our known developers to really encourage them specifically. I mean, advertising in that is certainly great, but I'm assuming we at the city do have a known list of people that we might want to give them an extra personal nudge to try and get them to attend this. And what Councillor Lafreniere said, I mean, anything that we can do, the city of Pembroke is not going to solve the Canadian housing crisis. But there are small levers that we can pull. There's levers the feds can pull. There's levers the developers are responsible for. And it's really all hands on deck, I think, on this particular issue. And so certainly I'm fully supportive of anything that we can do, particularly when it's frankly involves as little resources as something like this does. I do have one question, either from Mr. Unruh or the deputy mayor. Is this just for the city of Pembroke, or is this something that that some of our neighboring municipalities could be joining us on, or are they having their own or whatnot? Because again, this is a county-wide concern, and perhaps specifically, maybe we could get representatives on the county at least one of these, if it's not ours.
Yes, Mr. Unruh.
Yeah, so I can respond. So as far as I know that this would be strictly for Pembroke, I did reach out to the County of Renfrew, and they weren't aware of this. I think they did provide the connection between the Pembroke Affordable Housing and to the CMHC. They're willing to, quote unquote, they put their brand on it and support it. In regards to providing a representative at the forum, I'm not sure. Maybe the deputy mayor would have more to say on that.
So I can also add to that. I got the contact from the Jennifer Dombrowski from the County of Renfrew, and certainly if Mr. Unruh can contact them if they're interested in promoting it, that would be great, because housing affects everyone, and the more housing we have in the area, the better. Councillor Lafreniere, a comment?
Well, I was just going to say that I was in communication with a couple of individuals from the county, and they had indicated that they were having a meeting with CMHC as well to discuss this. So I'm not sure if this was what they were talking about, but anyway, I'm sure they know about it. Thank you.
Mayor Gervais?
Thank you. Just to add on that chain, so while the CAO was doing the staff thing, I went to the warden, and yes, so certainly the warden is looped in on the CMHC thing, because again, so while the city of Pembroke has a certain ability to reach out, the county has the same ability to reach out potentially to others as well. So certainly we're all doing our part to pull, as Councillor Keel says, all the different levers we're trying.
If I can speak from the chair for a second, when I contacted CMHC, I asked about in-person coming to Pembroke and sitting in a conference room with all the developers and stakeholders, government officials and council members, and there was no budget for that, for their travel, but this is actually a better system because it's going to be presented on Zoom, and he'll provide us with the presentation after for somebody who misses it. But I think it's very important. It'll be followed by a 30-minute Q&A, question and answer. And so we're hoping that our developers, like the developer said to me, it takes the county, the city, developer, CMHC, everything has to line up. So motion to, you'd like to make a motion, Councillor Lafreniere?
I would move that the city support any initiatives and help promote and share the news about this CMHC Zoom meeting happening August 29th.
Seconder, Councillor Keel. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next item, bylaw to regulate electronic surveillance monitoring use. Mr. Unruh?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm not going to spend very much time on this at all. This was all provided previously as a draft, and so we're just bringing it forward, and then there'll be a bylaw forthcoming on this.
Any questions while we're on the matter? Councillor Keel?
In the proposed sign design, should it be FIPA or MFIPA that we're collecting information under? I think I know which one I think it should be, but
Yeah, I'm getting the nod from the clerk, MFIPA.
MFIPA? Okay, so maybe a slight tweak to the proposed sign design.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Purcell?
Just one question in regards to authorized personnel. It seems very broad, the authorized personnel. City of Pembroke employees, that's every employee, part-time employees, it's all employees, it's contractors, agents, those the duties that require them to operate EMS equipment and or access the ESMS information and records. I'd like to see that a little tightened down in regards, because, and who's the authorizer, like who authorizes those personnel? So maybe just a little bit more clarity in there, because right now it's every Tom, Dick, and Harry right now would have access to that information the way it's written.
Mr. Unruh?
We can take that back.
Okay, thank you. Next item, final item for tonight, Animal Control Services. Ms. Martin.
So our contract with ProTech 5 ended, or will end on September 4th, and so we had to put out a new request for proposal. It was publicly advertised and closed on Thursday, July the 20th, and we had one proposal received. The proposal was reviewed and evaluated by a panel of two consisting of the city's Director of Planning, Building, and Bylaw Enforcement, as well as the city clerk. All scoring was done individually by the panel members, and the scoring was compiled by and monitored by the purchasing manager, deputy treasurer. So staff recommends that committee approve the award for animal control services request for proposal to ProTech 5 for a 5-year contract period from September 4th, 2023 to August 31st, 2028. And a bylaw has been prepared and will be before council this evening. As far as financial implication, services are provided on an hourly basis, with rates increasing by 2.3% in year 1 and 1% per year thereafter. On average, over the past 3 years, the city has spent approximately $11,544 per year for animal control services, but those do not reflect the costs for shelter services that the city contracts through the Ontario SPCA. The provided hourly service requirements, or provided that the hourly service requirements stay the same over the new contract period, on average, the cost for services will increase by $150 per year. And just for committee's information, ProTech 5 has provided us with excellent services, and we receive very few complaints in regards to their service, and they're timely. So staff does recommend the award.
Councillor Purcell, then Councillor Keel.
So I would move that we approve the award for animal control services to ProTech 5 for the 5-year contract period specified.
Seconder, Councillor Keel.
I'll second it.
Motion on the floor. Any questions or comments? Those in favor? Carried. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Keel. Seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? Carried. Combined committee is adjourned.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of council to order for August 8th, 2023. Before we begin, I'd ask that everyone please stand for an opening prayer or reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. I will be disclosing a perceived pecuniary interest in respect to bylaws 2023-54, 55, 56, and would be asking the deputy mayor to take the chair at that time. Seeing no others, we'll move into minutes. First is a regular meeting of council, July 11th, 2023, having been circulated. Entertain a motion for their adoption. Councillor Lafreniere, second by Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That's carried. Next, we have special meeting of council. That was July 25th, 2023. Motion by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor? That is carried. Last set of meetings for a special meeting of council was August 1st, 2023. Moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Giacono. Those in favor? That is carried. In reference to committees, adopting minutes from the combined committee of July 11th, 2023. I have the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That's carried. Then we have receiving minutes from local boards. First up, we have Pembroke Heritage Murals Committee, which was circulated for July 5th, 2023. I have Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. And last but not least, in reference to minutes from local boards, we have Accessibility Advisory Committee, April 11th, 2023. I have Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. Next, we have bylaws. First up, we have 2023-53 Animal Control Service Agreement. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, that bylaw 2023-53, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a services agreement for the provision of animal control services in the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Thank you. Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2023-53, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a service agreement for the provision of animal control services in the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Deputy Mayor?
This was discussed tonight during combined committee.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? And that is carried. At this point, if I could call upon the deputy mayor to address the next three matters.
Bylaw 2023-54, subdivision agreement with James LaPointe Motor Holdings. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2023-54, being a bylaw to provide for the execution of a subdivision agreement with James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Incorporated, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the deputy mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Awaiting your signature, Deputy Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Ed Giacono, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer. The bylaw 2023-54, a bylaw to provide for the execution of a subdivision agreement with James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the deputy mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? Motion carried. Councillor Giacono, would you like to speak to the motion?
Deputy Mayor, as the other two relate to that, I'll wait till the end, if you don't mind. And I'll speak
Okay.
to all three of them at once.
Yeah. Bylaw 2023-55, LaPointe subdivision, hydro easement, and public road. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Plummer that bylaw 2035-55, being a bylaw to provide for a hydro easement and public highway for the James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Incorporated subdivision, be adopted and passed, and further that said bylaw be signed by the Deputy Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and awaiting your signature, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Moved by Councillor Ed Giacono, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, the bylaw 2023-55, a bylaw to provide for a hydro easement and public highway for the James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Incorporated subdivision be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the Deputy Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? Carried. Next item, bylaw 2023-56, James LaPointe subdivision inhibiting order. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Plummer, that bylaw 2023-56, being a bylaw to provide for the inhibiting order for the James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Incorporated subdivision, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Deputy Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and awaiting your signature, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Moved by Councillor Ed Giacono, seconded by Councillor Andrew Plummer, the bylaw 2023-56, a bylaw to provide for the inhibiting order for the James W. LaPointe Motor Holdings Incorporated subdivision be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the Deputy Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? Motion carried. Bylaw carried. Councillor Giacono, would you like to speak to the three bylaws?
Thank you.
please?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. This particular subdivision proposes 45 lots for single detached dwellings, a block for stormwater management, drainage, parkland, etc. Not going to get into all of the details, but the requirements are there to hold the subdivider to ensuring that he fulfills his obligations under the subdivision agreement. As well, until the city takes ownership of a roadway, etc., there's certain amounts of criteria that have to be fulfilled and certain regulations. As well, there will be an easement required for hydro, and also there's a piece of property known as Eddy Crescent that is actually located on what is to be, part lot 41 is to be located on what is part of Eddy Crescent. Even though it is owned by the city, it does not form part of the proposed roadway system, Eddy Crescent. This part, number 41, part 41, on the draft reference plan, must be designated as a public highway and will be assumed in the future by the city once the roads meet the required standards. So this will allow the subdivision to move forward. What needs to be of concern for all of us as a council is that growth is good, but the regulation of growth is even better. A lot of cities have gone out of control with growth, down the southern parts of the province. The Oaks Moraine, which is an area that holds invaluable water resources, is being threatened by the idea of building huge, large subdivisions. So there's got to be a certain criteria to ensure that properties within the areas are selected to be protected, and that, if we got rid of all of the farmland in the world with homes, or in Canada, there'd be nothing to eat. So this is part of the deal. We should be quite cognizant of what growth brings, but growth also has to have some control. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. So call back Mayor Gervais to do the rest of the bylaws.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next is 2023-57, Center Street Parking Bylaw. Councillor Keel.
Moved by myself, seconded by, I think it was the Deputy Mayor. That bylaw 2023-57, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2020-74 is amended, being a bylaw to regulate and control the parking of vehicles in the city of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Councillor Keel, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, the bylaw 2023-57, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2020-74, as amended, being a bylaw to regulate and control the parking of vehicles in the city of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Keel.
As this matter was discussed earlier in combined committee, I'll refrain from any further comment.
Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, I have Councillor Plummer, 2023-58, regulate electronic surveillance monitoring use policy.
Thank you, Worship. So understanding there was some language concerns about the bylaw in the committee meeting. We still want to move forward with this, but only in the principal matter, so we can move ahead with the installation of cameras, and then coming up in the September meeting, we will bring the bylaw back. So I'm going to read the bylaw in principle, and we can vote on it. Hopefully, then we can move forward. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jackno, that bylaw 2023-50, a bylaw to adopt the electronic surveillance monitoring system use policy for the city of Pembroke, adopted and passed in principle. And therefore, it being said, be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Jackno, that bylaw 2023-58, a bylaw to adopt electronic surveillance monitoring system use policy for the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed in principle, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Plummer, did you want to add anything further to it?
I will add to that. So speaking, again, talking with, or listening to comments around the table of the committee, understanding that there was a concern about authorized users. We're going to rework some language and bring back an amended bylaw in September, directing the CAO and the director to delegate who is an authorized user, therefore not just be open, the language being too open right at the moment. So we'll be coming back, but I hope that council can support this bylaw in principle, therefore we can move ahead with camera installation.
Councillor Plummer. Yes, and if I may just to add, as I understand it, legal has indicated that without the policy, there is no cameras, and we know that we have sufficient assets down there, including a new wonderful waterfall, so it would be nice to move forward with this particular process. So I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Under motions, Resolution 2023-14, Councillor Lafreniere, event support.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor, I can't tell which one this is. Is that yours? Councillor Troy Purcell. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke recognizes the Ribs in the Valley Charity Rib Competition on August 19th, 2023 from 4 to 8 p.m. at 2 International Drive, Pembroke as an event of municipal significance and designates it as such for the purposes of an application for a special occasion permit from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. There you go.
By Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke recognizes the Ribs in the Valley Charity Rib Competition on August 19, 2023 from 4 till 8 p.m. at 2 International Drive in Pembroke as an event of municipal significance and designates it as such for the purpose of an application for a special occasion permit for Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. Councillor
Yes, this was discussed earlier tonight, and just to mention, all proceeds go to the grind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? And that is carried. Next, Shelter, Warming and Cooling Station and Homeless Support Bylaw. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, I'd like to just table the motion until staff reports in September. I think there's a staff report that's being drafted at this time. So I'll wait until such time that we receive the report in September. So that will be on tabled.
So a motion by Councillor Purcell. Is there a seconder? I have Councillor Keel. Those in favor? That one is tabled. Great.
Thank you.
Next one, indemnification policy. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you very much. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Fernier, whereas the City of Pembroke recognizes the importance of providing adequate indemnification coverage for its elected officials, including all councillors, deputy mayor, and mayor, and whereas indemnification coverage ensures that elected officials can fulfill their duties and responsibilities without fear of personal financial liability, and best practices, and whereas best practices for Ontario municipal government recommend the implementation of indemnification coverage for elected officials. And whereas indemnification coverage serves to attract qualified candidates for elected positions and promotes effective governance. And whereas many municipalities in Ontario have already implemented indemnification coverage for their elected officials. And whereas the City of Pembroke aims to align with best practices prevalent in Ontario municipal government, therefore be it resolved that the City of Pembroke shall implement indemnification coverage for all councillors, deputy mayor, and mayor, and be it further resolved that the indemnification policy shall be reviewed and approved by the City Council within 60 days of this motion passing. Thank you.
Motion by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Frenier, whereas the City of Pembroke recognizes the importance of providing adequate indemnification coverage for its elected officials, including councillors, deputy mayor, and mayor, and whereas indemnification coverage ensures that elected officials can fulfill their duties and responsibilities without fear of personal financial liability, and whereas best practices for Ontario municipal government recommend for implementation of indemnification coverage for elected officials, and whereas indemnification coverage serves to attract qualified candidates for elected positions and promotes effective governance, and whereas many municipalities in Ontario have already implemented indemnification coverage for the elected officials, and whereas the City of Pembroke aims to align with best practices prevalent in Ontario municipal government, therefore be it resolved that the City of Pembroke shall implement indemnification coverage for all councillors, deputy mayor, and mayor, and be it resolved that the indemnification policy be reviewed and approved by City Council within 60 days of the motion's passing. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you're quite aware, in terms of indemnification coverage does not exist for councillors, the mayor or deputy mayor. Currently, there's indemnification coverage or insurance coverage for staff only. So many municipalities, and I think Pembroke is one of the few municipalities that does not have indemnification coverage for councillors and council. So this bill simply introduces, or this motion simply introduces that opportunity to look at the implementation of this type of coverage for our councillors. Thank you.
Does anyone wish to speak to it? Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will speak to this one because this is perhaps one of the things that actually surprised me upon coming on council. I would agree with Councillor Purcell's statement that I think we might be one of the few councils that don't actually have indemnification coverage. Without going into the details, in my other life, I have represented a local councillor in a much smaller municipality than Pembroke, but still here within Renfrew County, on a conflict of interest Superior Court application. That was not paid for by the councillor. He was fully indemnified for that, and my law firm was paid directly. I've also represented another councillor, again locally in a smaller municipality, on a on a code of conduct matter, and that matter too was paid for directly by the municipality as part of their indemnification. So I am a little shocked that we don't have one. The reality is, even for the smallest of matter, such as that conflict of interest matter that I did, and I probably don't need to tell Your Worship this, but the bill was closer to $20,000 than it was for free. So I mean, certainly any one of us around this table, I know we all strive to do our best. We all strive to avoid conflicts. We all strive to uphold the responsibilities of our office, but that doesn't necessarily stop someone from having a different feeling, and then you're on the defensive and you're having to defend yourself. And certainly for the honorarium that we get paid, a full-blown lawsuit could literally obliterate annual pay in one foul swoop. So again, I will say that I am a little surprised that we don't have this. I do believe us to be one of the few in this county that don't. It's certainly not, in fact, I would guess across Ontario it's more abnormal for us not to have indemnification than it is for councils to have indemnification. So I would strongly encourage councillors around this table to think very long and hard on this particular one. I will be supporting it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Just a question for staff in terms of the 60 days, knowing that in August we meet once and so on and so forth, and just wondering, is 60 days something that can be accomplished?
Yeah, so if directed that council would like this done in 60 days, then I will put off other policies and procedures that we're working on and make this a priority. So it's dependent on if this is a priority or not. I can certainly make it happen, but that just means that other procedures and policies that council has asked to be brought forward will be put on the back hold until this one gets completed.
So if there's no other questions, I'll call the question. Those in favor? And that's carried. Next is Mayor's Report. So I am hopeful that everyone is enjoying their summer holidays. Having just gone through the August civic holiday, we should know that we're on the latter part of summer. And having said that, I turn to the comments in respect to Pembroke's infrastructure, and I would ask that the ratepayers be patient. Certainly there's a lot of different construction going on, but as the joke normally is that you have two seasons. You have winter and you have construction season. Told me stories, and it was just a great time meeting with Miss Mullen. Certainly I appreciated the opportunity to have this advanced celebration with her and provide her with a small token of appreciation from the City of Pembroke. On July 14th and 15th, the multicultural event was held, and I'm sure that everyone who attended or participated in one way or another will agree that it was simply fabulous. I was pleased to see many city councillors, as well as many staff, participate, attend, and do their part to make sure that this event was truly second to none. Not enough can be said about this inclusive event. I want to take this opportunity to thank Karthi Rajamani, the Pembroke Public Library Board, the staff at the Pembroke Public Library, city staff, countless volunteers for all of their hard work and dedication to create this event and for working to enhance it each and every year. I know that Karthi's already working on next year and was talking about different ideas. I want to thank each and every one of the individuals who participated in this great event. Of special note, I want to acknowledge comments made by one performer, and the performer was Rebecca Hope. I'd never met Rebecca Hope before, but I thought it was interesting as we go, as the CAO talks about a journey in terms of diversity and inclusion. She commented upon how she enjoyed being able to perform at an event and feeling safe to do so despite being a two-spirited Indigenous woman, and that as a two-spirited Indigenous woman, she didn't always feel that way. She talked about going to, I believe it was Bishop Smith Catholic High, and then going away, and I was really encouraged by her comments that the city, that as a city, we collectively are making a difference to make it more inclusive and diverse, and that now more than ever, we are working on that to be reflective of the country and the world as a whole. So I really took to heart her comments that she made while she was going between playing some beautiful songs. On July 27th, I met with the owners of A Special Time, Cindy McKellar and her family, to wish them well in their retirement. As I explained to them, it was bittersweet. I'm pleased that they are retiring and that they'll enjoy this part of their life, but saddened that we will lose such a great business that spanned almost 4 decades. So congratulations to that entire family. Truly, it was a family business. On the same day, it was my pleasure to attend with Bethia Summers, Stacey Taylor, the Deputy Mayor, and a number of participants at the opening of the Community Art Walk. What a great initiative, a great innovative enterprise, and so well done to all of those individuals for doing their part in reference to that. On Saturday, July 29th, I had the pleasure to conduct foot patrol with the detachment commander, Stefan Newfield. Gave me an opportunity to talk to different individuals at different businesses and individuals, meet up with Councillor Keel in the Robbie Dean event, and so it was a great opportunity to meet different people. And when you're out and about, then I'm sure that everyone would agree, when you're out and about, that's when you tend to get the questions and the comments and so forth, and you're making yourself accessible to the public at large. Before I conclude, I just want to bring to everyone's attention that Kids and Cops Fishing Derby on behalf of the Police Services Board will be held August 12, 2023 at the Pembroke Waterfront Park, 9 till noon. So hope to see everyone out there for that. And as always, stay safe and be kind to one another. Okay. Are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, are there any councillor updates? I have Councillor Keel and then Councillor Jacquino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be quick because you named a number of the events that I was going to name. The Multicultural Festival, simply spectacular. I think this is something that could really put Pembroke on the map, particularly in rural Ontario. That's not where you traditionally go for multicultural events, and I think it's great that the city of Pembroke is, I think, breaking ground actually on that sort of event. I also, a couple of weeks ago, had the opportunity to attend the Youth Pop-Up Market down at Shamrock Park. This is going on every Thursday in July and August, so I think there's still a couple Thursdays left for anyone to attend. This is an absolutely fabulous entrepreneurial organized event by the PBIA, wherein they get members of our local youth community. Whether they're making bracelets or jewelry. There were some pet rocks down there. I was told that on other days that there's baked goods and fishing lures, and I mean the sheer amount of ingenuity from our youth is just spectacular. And in my opinion, this is the type of event that says to young people, the city believes in you, and the city wants you to be a part of the city. So if any councillors haven't attended yet, I would strongly recommend that you go down and check out some of our youth. The Community Art Walk, again, another PBIA event, and I highlight that because the PBIA in Pembroke is doing so much good work. So I was out there, the Deputy Mayor was out there, not just for a photo op, but we were actually physically putting up some of the artwork, and you know, the comments that I got were literally next day. Clients coming to my office literally the next day said, you know, Ian, did you see the artwork that seemingly just popped up downtown? And when you get that kind of positive and immediate reaction, you know you're onto something good. And in talking with them, I know this year, I believe when they attended a conference and got the idea, so it started a little late. All I can say to the councillors around this table is, imagine what we're going to have next year with months of pre-planning and hopefully getting the schools and classrooms involved. It could be something truly spectacular. Music for a Cause, I want to personally thank, on behalf of the Robbie Dean Centre, City Council for supporting this event. It was, I believe, 17 bands. It went from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. I don't know the number of people that were down there, but it raised thousands of dollars for the Robbie Dean Centre. And once again, it came on the tail end of some really good news that the residents were noticing, and that was that we had a great Canada Day, followed by a great multicultural festival, followed by sort of a revamped music festival, all in the span of these short summer months. So for those people, and I think at least one other councillor has said this before, for those people that say nothing goes on in the city of Pembroke, with all due respect, you are not correct. And one only needs to just look at these last couple months to see that. The fireworks, I want to specifically thank the fire department, as well as the Pembroke Professional Firefighters Association Local 488. I had the opportunity to attend that night, and I was giving out some free bracelets And afterwards, both right on the field and on Facebook, everyone was saying it was one of the best shows that they've seen in a long time. After the event, I did go down and meet with some of our firefighters to thank them for that event. And I know Councillor Lafreniere and I were talking about this briefly earlier tonight. This year's Canada Day, and unfortunately the fireworks were sort of removed from Canada Day. But if the people think that we're onto something good, I think they should just keep watching us because I think with Councillor Lafreniere's leadership in the Parks and Rec Department, supplemented by Vice Chair Troy Purcell, I think we're really making that into a strong event again. This morning, I actually had the opportunity to attend at the Renfrew County VTAC headquarters at the Carrefour. I was there with Mr. Yazir Naqvi, MP from Ottawa Centre, who was up touring the riding. It was absolutely fabulous, not just to know what they do. I know everybody here knows what VTAC does, but if you have the opportunity, I would recommend that everyone here contact VTAC and ask them for a tour of this facility, just so that you can see how excited the VTAC staff are about how they are changing not just things here in Renfrew County, but hopefully across the province. It's a spectacular model that is benefiting so many people, and I again personally want to thank this council for supporting that VTAC resolution back in February, and of course we did get final funding for that. And then I also, Mr. Naqvi being a member of Parliament, I couldn't help myself. We also went over and met with Lee Costello and her father to talk about the erosion event, and obviously the city is looking to both the federal and the provincial governments to assist on that, and I know the mayor has been working on that as well. I'm not going to put words as to what he's been doing, but he's certainly been corresponding with the government quite heavily on that file. Again, another one where it's all hands on deck. And Mr. Naqvi certainly relayed his concerns, both with respect to climate change generally, and also municipalities' abilities to respond to some of these things. So it's been a busy summer, and I thank council.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. If you haven't noticed, the 40-panel mural is back in front of the library. It is probably now noted as the largest freestanding mural in Canada. Speaking of art downtown, I mean, the murals represent a large outdoor gallery that's free. There's no charge. It attracts people from all over the world. And I just want to, again, thank the leader of that project, Councillor Pam Dempsey, who I'm sure could be a councillor very easily, and her hardworking committee, and also to the artist, Carol Marwa, who has Indigenous roots, and you'll see it now on the library. People, you know, it's an attention drawer. Thank you.
Councillor Frenier?
Yes, lots of exciting things, you're right, and all around youth, it seems a lot of it is happening. Youth Try It Expo, taking place August 26th at the PMC from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. I sit with Deputy Mayor Abdallah on the Youth Council. Again, he invited me, which was great, and Councillor Ian Keel as well. And we discussed how we can get youth more involved in things in our community and make them feel like they have a meaning and they're part of something. So what we've done is we've asked the recreation staff to start to expand the Youth Try It Day to be an actual youth expo. And they're excited about it too. And I think this is something that's going to grow. Previously, it was highlighting and it was showcasing our incredible local sports and organizations and that type of thing. We're going to expand it to be services as well. Phoenix Center, FCS, the new youth hub that exists, the Indigenous Youth Hub. And we're also thinking of opening it up to employers next year. So a youth employment component to the show. Because we know everyone's looking for employees, and young people sometimes just need a little push. So I'm excited about the change in the format. It'll have everything everyone loved about it last year, demonstrations by our skateboard group. But anyway, I'm excited about this. It's good news. And just want to say, the zest that's come into the recreation department in the last couple of years is not because of my leadership. It is a team thing. Councillor Purcell's new on board, but even though Councillor Keel is not on the recreation, the small committee, you certainly have had an impact in the decisions that we've been making. So I want to thank you for your involvement, as well as the deputy mayor. I mean, he lit a fire under the department when he came on board to council. So I want to thank you for that. And I really hope that the residents are noticing this resurgence of activities. My last comment for tonight is about the CMHC Zoom meeting. Any developers in our area or anyone that has an interest in development of affordable housing in our community, there is a Zoom meeting August 29th at 10:30 a.m. I invite you to get the logistics. They probably will be shared publicly. We discussed it earlier tonight. But I invite you to, it's a worthwhile 50 minutes with a Q&A after. So I invite you all to take part. And I guess I have one final thing, and that is, Councillor Keel triggered it. I do sit on the health committee, and so I know about VTAC and what's happening with our paramedic service, as well as Councillor Purcell. And I just want to say, I know in the past there was always concerns about our ambulances going to Ottawa. So I just want to know that there was a flaw in that system. And it's been rectified by a new system called MPDS. And what it is it's a new system where the calls are screened more. Because right now, if they get a certain type of call, right away they have to respond, and one of our ambulances would often have to leave the community. They're going to be rated now as to which ones really are urgent, and so often our ambulances would not be needed. So I just want to say that they are on top of it. This is a new system, and they're always working to improve. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Plummer, and then the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick highlights from ORPC, as we're almost a year in here in council. So the 148 project is still proceeding, upgrading poles. Has there been a bit of scope change? They're dealing with pole relocation. So we all know that 148 is not happening this year. It'll be happening hopefully next year with upgrades to that roadway. The ultra-low overnight rate has been introduced by the OEB to give people more choice in their energy consumption. So we all know there's time of use or there's bulk pricing. Depending on how many kilowatts you use, you can go to different tier level. And then now there's an ultra-low overnight rate. So if you have electric vehicles, maybe that might be something you look into because you're going to be charging in the overnight. You're not using much power during the day. Upgrades to the MS1 station, which is the station downtown. Originally, that station was going to be taken out of service, but due to shortages and upgrades of the 12 kV system, they've gone with to basically reinstate that system for another 10 to 15 years. They got a used transformer, but it's made in the year that they were making good ones. So, quote unquote, it's a good one we got. So, it's lightly used in the neighborhood of a couple decades old, but as I say, it's when you're buying a transformer, I guess now they don't make them like they used to. So it's going to be in service for another 10 to 15 years as they continue upgrades within our electrical grid. The ORPC has achieved the green button certification. So this is a successful completion of compliance in the green button certification program to connect my data and download my data. So just giving people, again, more opportunity to look at what they're doing in their consumption rates and how to track their own use. And updates from, think back to April 5th of the ice storm. We did have an ice storm back then. We had many trees down, but just a short note that ORPC worked tirelessly on 45 separate issues across all sector territories relating to the damage. And ORC, roughly the communication averaging about 2 updates per hour in updates on how they're successfully completing the repairs. We just special note to the crews. They do work tirelessly through the evenings, so to get the power back on in as quick as we can. And a good thank you to all the staff there at ORPC for a job well done for that system. I know some people hear about issues in other areas or other provinces where they're out for weeks or multiple days. I think we were always back up and running within a few hours, or at least as timely a manner as they can. So a good thank you to the ORPC for that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few items. The CMHC presentation on the 29th, I'll provide a link to staff, and they can contact myself or a staff member. I'll work that with Mr. Unrock. Community Watch, on behalf of the mayor and I, the Community Watch group, the Police Services Board approved 2 more Community Watch zones at their last meeting in July. They approved Johnson Meadows off Boundary Road near the fire hall, and they also approved the downtown core. So now we have the waterfront park, downtown core, and signs will be going up. And we want to thank Stacey Taylor and her son and the PBA for spearheading that canvassing that area, and also the neighborhood who spearheaded the ones in Johnson Meadows. Community Art Walk has been discussed. PBA wants to thank everyone. I won't repeat what's already been said. We wish everyone to go down and encourage them to see what's available. We want to commend Stacey Taylor and Bethia Summers and Levi Post and the volunteers for spearheading this initiative from a conference, as you said. Multicultural Festival, I met with Karthi Rajamani this morning in the library, and she was asking me, she said, Brian, what do people think of Multicultural Festival? I said, Karthi, don't worry, don't worry. She's already planning for next year, as the mayor said. The other item, the Pembroke Youth Council will be at the Youth Expo, Trade Expo. We'll have a booth set up and banner and information sheet. Our next meeting is September 26th. And in October, Councillor Frenier and I will be appearing before the school board, public school board, to get them on board also. Finally, a bit of trivia for Councillor Frenier and Councillor Giacono. What happened 25 years ago on this evening? I'll give you a couple. You weren't on the council 25 years ago? Okay, but you were deputy mayor. Les Scott was the mayor. And yeah, and so this is on behalf of the Arboretum and the Waterfront Committee. So I was talking to Fred Blackstein a couple times this week, and 25 years ago tonight, Fred Blackstein appeared with his committee before the council with a vision for the Pembroke Waterfront Park. And the groundwork was laid. And here we are today, and Fred wanted me to let everyone know, thanks to all the volunteers, all the clubs, the Horticultural Society, all the business sponsors, what we have today. And he said to me, maybe Deputy Mayor want to add something to that comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's a valued project, enjoyed by many, and it wouldn't have happened without the collaboration of volunteers, Algonquin College, a group of thugs, I call them, from the West End, who Fred gave some purpose to, and they put in half the boards in one section, and they threatened anybody, if there was any vandalism, they'd be responsible to those guys. And you know what? There was no vandalism, so I can't understand that, but it was a collaborative thing, and it's a wonderful thing. We have comments from people everywhere, so it didn't happen with one person, it happened with many people. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Next, I have closed session. Councillor Purcell.
Worship, motion for council to move into caucus meeting on August 8th, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Keel. that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of lands by the municipality under Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act regarding land on Pembroke Street West, on Griffith Street, Montgomery Street, and former CN lands, and information supplied in confidence to the municipality which the close could reasonably prejudice or cause harm to third party of the Municipal Act regarding financial information that's disclosed, could cause harm to the competitive position of an organization, and labor relations or employee negotiations under Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act regarding the firefighters contract. Thank you.
By Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Keel, that this meeting become a closed meeting to discuss proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by a municipality, Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act regarding land on Pembroke Street West, on Griffith Street / Montgomery Street, and former CN lands. And secondly, information supplied in confidence to the municipality, if disclosed, could reasonably prejudice or cause harm to a third party, Section 239(2)I of the Municipal Act regarding financial information that, if disclosed, could cause harm to competitive position of an organization. And lastly, labor relations or employee negotiations, Section 239(2)D of the Municipal Act regarding firefighters' contracts. Those in favor? And that's carried. We'll now move into a closed session.